To get a good flood icing, start with fresh, stiff consistency royal icing. Know you've reached a good flood consistency when the icing begins to ribbon off the end of your spatula and takes anywhere from 15 to 25 seconds to settle into the frosting completely flat to where it was before. Now, in this process, you'll need to look out for air bubbles and pop those as they come up. If the icing is still too thick like mine is, go ahead and add water in small amounts until you get it to a good consistency. When you've got it to a consistency that ribbons off your spatula and settles into the frosting below, then it's time to move to the next step, which is coloring your icing. In the wet on wet technique, it's important that you figure out the consistency before you color the icing so that you know when you mix the icings again, they'll settle into each other instead of be two different textures that create a textured effect on your cookie. So normally we would color first so that we know that all the different textures have the exact same color. But when you do wet on wet, you have to get that consistency exactly right. This is why I'm divvying out my white icing into different bowls to then worry about what colors I need. Now it's time for step 4, which is to flood the cookie. For this process, I'm going to be using a lemon rosemary shortbread cookie, which is why it has kind of a funky texture on it. So you're going to take the floods that you made and your tipless bags. You're going to cut a tip that's fairly big. Think about the end of a pencil, and you're going to use that to flood your cookie. Remember, the bigger the hole at the end of the bag is, the more flood and the faster it goes, but the less control you have if you're looking for a specific pattern like I am here. Because these are lemon cookies, I'm looking to create a pattern that looks a little bit like a lemon on the top. Once I have the exact pattern that I want, I'm going to shake out the cookie to help it level off and then use my scribe to help fill in the gaps. Once I've used my scribe for that purpose and my icing is settling into itself, which it can only do if you have your consistency right, then I'm going to use that scribe to begin creating the pattern inside of my cookie. Remember, even if it looks a little funky at first, the icing will settle. It will create a more smooth effect than it does when you first look at it. Now for this blueberry lemon cookie, I'm going to do a different technique for wet on wet. Instead of putting in each layer one at a time using a base layer, I'm going to put in a pattern using multiple colors. And what this is going to do is this is going to create kind of a blurred effect of whatever pattern I'm going to create. So the colors won't stay in their designated little spots that I'm putting them in. Instead, they're going to flood into each other. And then the flood background will go around that. And the reason that we would do this reverse technique is so that we can come back afterwards and add fine details. In this case, I'm going to do line drawing on top of the cookie, though you could use this to create other kinds of more soft, gentle background patterns to come in and do a more detailed piping on top of the cookie. Just like before, I'm going to use my scribe to fill in any details, make sure I take it all the way to the edges. And this time I'm also going to add a little bit of flood on top of the base coat to add little leaves. And that's also going to just blend in, flatten in with the rest of it since we have it all in the same consistency. And that's how to use the wet on wet technique to create your own custom cookies.